6 ways to make people like you, as taught by Dale Carnegie in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It is one of our favorite books. If you look closely, you can see that our 2-year-old daughter scribbled all over it. Yeah. She made her mark at how awesome that book is. This book was published in 1936. So these are tried and true, tested methods for relationships. So 6 ways to make people like you. Number 1, become genuinely interested in other people. Danny.
So when somebody's talking to you about, I work in the metal industry, or I work selling flowers, or like I read for a living, like that may sound really boring to you, but it's like, okay, tell me more about that. Yeah. Choose to be interested. You might be like, oh, that sounds boring, but I'm actually gonna dig a little bit deeper and see what I can find. So 1, you may actually find that you're way more interested than you thought you'd be, and which is usually the case. Or 2, the person on the receiving end is sitting there being like, oh, maybe I am interesting. I must be interesting because you're interested, right? And you're giving somebody the gift of your undivided attention, which is so satisfying to the soul of people. Difference, yeah. Oh my God, all of a sudden it's like I matter, I'm interesting, my words are worth speaking. Like you're giving people the gift of significance when you take an interest in their life.
Through my pregnancy with twins, there was multiple different times where I just had random guys ask me that, that were friends of Danny, just sit down and ask me, how are you doing? How's this pregnancy going? Tell me what's happening to your body? How are things changing? Which sounds kind of weird to just have a random conversation about that. But it made me feel so much more known. It made me feel more connected to these people who really will never understand a pregnancy journey. They will never get what's going on. But because they were willing to just listen, to take a step into my shoes, we grew in relationship as a result, which just made me feel loved, made them even more fascinated of like, your body is amazing.
Your body's doing what?
All of these different
things.
You
can make milk?
What?
I'm like,
oh my gosh.
How do you fit 2 babies in there?
Number 2, smile. Need we say more? When people walk into a room with a smile versus with a frown on their face or that RBF, which I don't know if I should say
You know what it means. Let's find out if we could swear. Resting bitch face. Can we say bitch? It looks like we can't. You don't know until you try.
Yep.
I remember as a freshman in high school, you may not believe this about me, but I was an incredibly shy kid. I was the kind of kid who like sat in the corner of the building at recess playing his Game Boy. And if I wasn't allowed to play Game Boy, I would sit quietly to myself for like 45 minutes while the rest of my school was all playing together. I was a really weird, shy kid. But I remember freshman year of high school, when I finally started to come out of my shell a little bit, a random senior girl came up to me and said, you have a nice smile. You should smile more. And for some reason in that moment, I was like, okay, a senior girl, which is like God at that point, told me I should smile more. So what did I do? I decided to smile more. And people started looking at me saying like, that's a happy guy. I realized how I'd smile at strangers in the hallway and I noticed that people would smile back. And I'm like, well, that's nice. Yeah. This is kind of working. And I honestly think it attracted to me more attention and more friendly people because by smiling, you're telling the world, I'm a friendly person. So people say, yeah, I like talking to friendly people. Let's get to know each other.
So make sure you intentionally smile when you're with people.
Yeah.
Number 3, remember a person's name. Danny.
Okay, fun story. I used to be a summer camp counselor at theater camps for kids ages 8 to 12. And I remembered having 60 kids at my summer camp. So what I did is I challenged myself to memorize every single kid's first and last name by day 2. So in 2 days of knowing these, by lunch of the second day. So by lunch, I sit up 60 kids. And I say, your name is Lawrence Jefferson. Your name is Kayla Smith. Your name is John Wilson. Like I went through every single kid, 60 kids, and every single one of them knew I matter. I'm important. He knows my name. When they're doing something really well, I'd say, hey, Lawrence, good job. And they go, that's me. He sees me. He knows me. Yeah. And when I'd say, hey, like, Jonathan, knock it off. You're screwing around back there. He'd go, oh no, he knows me. He sees me. Like it works both ways. The saddest part of that story is there's one poor little girl that I could not remember her name. I get through 59 names and I get like, is that like 30? I get to this one girl. I'm like, I'm going to come back to you. Finish every other name. And it was just this one girl that I couldn't remember. And you think about how important it is to remember people's name. It was devastating that I couldn't remember her name because she's like, I'm the only kid out of 60 that's forgettable.
So I'm sure you worked the entire rest of the week to make it up to her. You probably said her name
every single time.
Every time you could.
Yeah. If it was like Beth Winters, I was like, hi, Beth Winters. Good morning, Beth Winters. Hey, Beth Winters. How was your day yesterday? Beth Winters, good job. I was like, over and over again because I knew how important it was. That's why I was extra sad.
Yeah.
Number 4 sounds obvious, but it's totally worth mentioning because while we all kind of know it, none of us really do it. And that's be a good listener and encourage others to talk about themselves.
I think in our culture and in our day and age, it's so easy to ask people questions and actually not listen to what they say afterwards. Yeah. Or you ask people something and you listen only enough to then start thinking about what you're going to say next.
Yep.
But if you take a step back and you say, no. I'm going to listen to what they have to say. And not only that, but I'm actually going to ask them further questions about themselves. You are making people feel loved. You're making people feel known, which is really this progression of these 6 tools that we're talking about.
Yep. Number 5, kind of the application of the first point, but choose to talk in terms of the other person's interest. Now, what does that mean?
So it literally means talk about what the other person wants to talk about. Because a lot of times we can come into time with other people and we have an agenda of what we want to talk about. We have all of this new and exciting things that we want to talk about in our own life. But if we, again, take a step back and say, no, I'm going to make this person important in my life. I'm going to make them feel seen and known. And I'm going to actually talk about what they want to talk about. A lot of times you may leave those conversations and they maybe never asked you about your own life, but they might leave feeling like they are the most loved, focused on. They had so much attention on them and they could write you afterwards. I've literally had this happen. They could write you afterwards being like, I had the best time with you. You are the most amazing person I've ever known. And you're sitting there going, I didn't share a single thing about myself.
All I did was ask questions.
All I did was I asked questions and I talked about what they wanted to talk about. And it's so rare to have that happen in relationships nowadays. So make it a point. Talk about what the other person wants to talk about. See what it does.
And the obvious way to demonstrate the value of that is think about how much you love talking about the things you love. Now imagine that you give that to the other person. That's a great gift. Let them do it. Let them talk.
I love the times when Danny wants to talk to me about relationships. When he's like, Nat, let's talk about what you've been learning. Let's talk about the Enneagram. Let's talk about these different things. And I'm like, yes, I can talk for hours. Or if I ask Danny about music, or if I ask him about camera equipment, or if I ask him about Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder and all of his nerdy games, when I take time to actually talk about what he likes talking about, he feels significantly more loved as a result.
And also, if you don't talk to me about those things, I'm going to talk to you about them anyways, and it'll irritate you. So you may as well choose to talk about it once in a while as a gift rather than be subjected to it when you're frustrated.
It's so true.
And also, there should be some give and take. You shouldn't only let the other person talk all the time. Sooner or later, if it's going to be a healthy relationship, you should also get to talk sometimes. And I hate this. Every time I hear it, but it's a really good reminder, is we have one mouth and 2 ears.
Oh my God.
So we should be listening twice as much as we're speaking. I hate it, but it's true. And maybe that's even why I hate it so much, is because it's right. But it's a good reminder.
It's a good reminder.
And finally, number 6, make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. Natalie, how do we do that?
Obviously, all of these 6 points seem super similar because we are just building them on top of each other. And so if you do these first 5 points, you will be making that person feel important and you will be doing it sincerely. So when you remember a person's name, do it sincerely. Don't do it to get something out of it. When you smile, do it sincerely. Don't do it to just see what you can, see the type of reaction that you can get. Do these different things sincerely. And by doing them, you truly will make people feel important. And when people feel important, you actually bring their best self to the surface. It's actually a way to tap into the gold that's inside of them. Because every single one of us have amazing things to offer, but it sometimes takes some mining. It sometimes takes some digging to go, ooh, I'm gonna tap into what's inside of you. But I do that by making you feel important. I do that by recognizing who you are, how you're wired, the things that you like. I'm going to smile at you. I'm going to remember your name. I'm going to do these different things. And in doing so, we bond closer because you feel important and I feel great for making you feel important.
Yep. And I mean, again, think about it too. Like how many of you, and this is rhetorical because it's all of you, how many of you feel like you're not good enough or like you're not that interesting or you're not that great? You know, like, I don't know, maybe I'm not as good as I want to be. Like we all have that self-critical voice that says you're not good enough, you're not interesting. And for that brief moment of time with you, when you're asking me about my interests and you're taking interest in me, you remember my name and you want to hear more from me, for that one brief conversation, you've met the deepest need of my soul, which is to feel like I matter, like I'm worth listening to, like I have any significance at all. You're giving people an incredible gift. And of course I want to talk to you. Of course I want you to be in my life because you fulfill the needs of my soul to be valued. And again, that doesn't work if it's only one-sided. You know, like if you want a healthy long-term relationship, you're going to have some give and take. But since you can't demand it from somebody else, you may as well offer it to people. And good people that belong in long-term relationship with you will offer it back to you. But first and foremost, make people feel valued, because when they feel valued, they want to be around you. It's really that simple. It's not a trick. You're just giving people what they really need. And
many times, as a result, people begin to mirror what you do. Yeah. So it's very rare for you to smile at someone and them to not smile back.
Yeah.
It's very rare. It's very rare for you to ask somebody how they're doing and them not ask you back.
Yep.
So people begin, it's almost a subtle way of even teaching people exactly what you need in relationship is you're modeling exactly what you want to receive in return.
You're leading by example. And I remember when I have conversations with people who are really good at this, I remember like, I'll be like 20 minutes into the conversation and be like, I've only been talking about myself, you know, I need to start doing what they're doing and ask them some questions. Like, you know, but as people demonstrate this to me, it reminds me the value of it, because in that conversation, I'm like, I feel great and I'd love to keep talking about myself, but I want to make sure you feel valued too. So let's give some of that back.
Yeah.
So that's it. If you apply these rules, there's a good chance
people will like you.
People will want to be a part of your life because you're finally giving them what they really need. Some time, some attention, some focus, some interest, and that true significance that everybody craves.
Yeah.
So they're simple, but give them a shot. Go make a friend.
Yeah.
Go meet a stranger right now.
Ooh.
Just go like walk
off
your
Just try these 6 things. See if people like you more.
Yeah.
This book, if the camera can grab it, our daughter scribbled all over it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
2-year-old.
This book belongs to people who have kids.
Oh yes.